Hey guys, welcome back to my Practically Imperfect Life. Today's video is the second in a series of curriculum review videos where we look at what we use in different subject areas for 2023 and 2024 and tell you what our thoughts are on it and how it worked in our homeschool. Today I'm going to be talking about our choices for English and literature. All right, for those of you who might be new to my channel, my name's Abby and I'm a homeschooling mom of two. I have high schoolers. I have a sophomore this year and I have a junior. And I want to share a little bit about how it is that we approach English or literature in the high school years. Back in middle school and elementary school, things were broken down a little bit more. We might have had a grade for language arts where we focused on skills like grammar and writing. And then we had more of a reading focus that's really just reading different things, answering questions about them, possibly doing some writing assignments, and vocabulary mixed into there. But as we entered the high school years, I thought about how English courses are typically graded. You usually will have a course that's English 9, English 10, English 11, English 12, and possibly have those be honors level or AP level depending on your student and where they're at in terms of their English and literature comprehension skills. And that's how I wanted to approach it. I still wanted to have those different components all come together, but it's one grade and one course in our homeschool. So you'll see several different types of curriculum that we use, but that is to cover those different kind of building blocks of an English course. We will have something that focuses on literature and literature comprehension, something that focuses on writing, vocabulary, and if needed, grammar review. And I say grammar review because by the high school years, most basic grammar skills should have been taught or covered. If your student hasn't really mastered a lot of grammar skills, you can definitely use some of this curriculum and other ones that are out there to help really build those skill sets because they are critical for being able to write good, solid papers. I'm going to start with what my oldest is using this year because her course load is a little bit simpler in terms of the number of pieces that make it up, and there are some things that are similar between hers and her brother's. So this is for my 11th graders English. For learning vocabulary and vocabulary review, we use Wordly Wise, and I just have to say, whoever decided to call it Wordly Wise, almost everybody says it wrong. I can't be alone in this and that. I call it Worldly Wise way too often, but it's Wordly Wise. She is using the level 11 book, and I'll just pop a picture up here because she actually has it with her right now, and I didn't want to swipe it, but I have her brother's version to show you. They look very similar. So for each year, there is a workbook like this. It has 20 lessons with a few review lessons worked in every couple of lessons. We also opt to use the optional test booklets for these. So this gives us a test that we can use after each lesson if you desire to. We have done it on different years where we did not use the test booklets. I decided to use it this year as just another way to kind of quiz them on these words, make sure that they're really learning them. I do not put this in the gradebook as a test. I put it in as a quiz, but each of them are 2 to 3 pages simply because of, how spaced out things have to be on here to cover a whole test. What I like about this, first of all, each lesson introduces 15 new vocabulary words. It lets you know what type of word it is, it gives you the definition, and then there are multiple exercises they will do in order to learn that word in different ways. It's not just memorizing the definition. It's practicing using that word in sentences. It's being able to identify if that word is correct in a sentence, identify things that might be synonyms or antonyms to that word, and really just getting a good understanding of it within the context of a reading assignment or a reading passage. And so the different exercises, there will be 5 for each lesson. There'll be a lesson and then A, B, C, D, E activities. We just do one of those activities every single day. The activities vary from week to some degree, but there are some that will be repeated fairly often. For example, and this is just pulling near one of the later lessons, the exercise A says choose the most accurate paraphrase for each sentence. So it gives you a sentence using one of the vocabulary words, and then you have to choose another sentence that is a good paraphrase of that. There is one where you are finding words that are similar or have similar meanings. looking at synonyms and antonyms, understanding contextual meanings. So you're reading a sentence that uses a vocabulary word, and if it's used correctly, you mark it as correct, and if not, then you would readjust that sentence with the correct word choice. And then there's always a vocabulary in context section. So it will have a reading assignment, and some of the vocabulary words are used within the passage itself. Other ones are used within the questions, and I like that because they are seeing those vocabulary words used in different ways. The one thing that we do tend to skip is at the end of each lesson, they have what's called a vocabulary extension, and it's just another exercise. However, it's kind of designed to be used in a group or a classroom setting, and since both of my kids are doing a different level of vocabulary, we just skip that, and then they will go ahead and they will do the test for here. So basically every 6 days we complete one of these lessons. Obviously we will get done with this before the end of our school year because it is only 20 lessons long and we go through 36 weeks for school. However, I have really liked it. I feel like it is introducing a ton of vocabulary to the kids, and it is doing those exercises in many different ways. Both of my kids plan to take the SAT, and vocabulary is a huge component of preparing for that. So we have quite liked this. I do plan to use this at the very least with my son when he's an 11th grader next year. My oldest is going to be doing dual enrollment for her 12th grade year for English, so I doubt we will need to have an additional vocabulary component. But I do feel like this has helped prepare her for her SAT, which is coming up in June this year. And she just has a very broad vocabulary, having utilized this course. Now for my 11th graders literature and writing component, we are using Excellence in Literature. This is by Janice Campbell. This is the British literature course. If you look on the Excellence in Literature website, they actually will have more than 4 courses listed. So you could start with one in 8th grade, or if you start with the first one in 8th grade, you could simply skip some of the later ones. We have kind of bounced around with using this curriculum. She used it in 9th grade. We skipped it in 10th grade. She actually used Apologia's American Literature course. And then for 11th grade, we went on to British literature. This is a wonderful course, but it's wonderful for certain types of students. First of all, this course is very much designed to be student driven. You are given generalized assignments and when roughly they should be due, but it is really up to the student to determine how much reading am I going to do on each day, how much research, how much work on a writing assignment. As a parent, I could go in and I could write out more detailed lesson plans, but I don't want to. That takes a lot of time. And she is a student who is very good at holding herself accountable to deadlines and understanding how to adjust her schedule. It is meant to be college preparatory in that way because in college you are given a deadline for an assignment. You are not told how to break that down and work on it each and every day. You as the college student have to make that determination. So this is a great way to prepare them for that kind of work. The other reason why I say it's good for stronger English students is that the reading selections are long and they can be difficult. There's a lot of classics that are included in these books, and it's not to say that every student shouldn't read some of these classics. It's simply how quickly you're going through them and the sheer volume that you're going through. The course is divided up into 9 modules. They are designed to be 4 weeks long each. The standard course has you read 1 novel or 1 work for each 4-week period. And it suggests if you'd like to make this an honors course, there is a second book you can add in. Oftentimes that second book is just as long or longer than the first one. That's a lot of reading to do. Essentially, it's having you go through a main novel within 2 weeks and then an honors book in another 2 weeks while doing writing assignments and research on top of that. It's very demanding on your student in that regard. So if they are a slower reader, you may want to only do 1 of the books each module. You might consider doing a Kindle or an audiobook version of one or the other book, although I do think there's value in actually physically holding the books because it does teach you about marking up books and how to jot down notes and make references so that way when you're going back and you're writing these papers, you can more easily find that information within these longer novels and be able to pull that into your paper. The writing assignments also differ from week to week. Oftentimes, the very first week of a module, she's writing what's called an author profile. The format of an author profile is the same from module to module, but it's meant to give background information about, of course, the author of the main work. And then weeks 2 and 3, the writing assignments can be different. Sometimes she's writing what's called an approach paper. Think of that as more your traditional like 5-paragraph paper. It might be what they call a historical approach, or there might be a prompt. Sometimes she's doing these topical papers, or a historical letter, or like summary titles. Basically, it'll give you some sort of mid-length writing assignment to do on weeks 2 and 3. It just varies module to module depending on the work. And then the last thing that she is writing is a longer approach paper. Typically, it recommends for it to be 750 words, which is totally doable, but that is a longer paper. And there is a prompt or prompts she can choose from for that module. So she will look at those instructions and determine which prompt she wants to do. She will work on writing that paper, usually on week 3. The rough draft is supposed to be done by Friday of week 3. And then she's supposed to hand it in so I can take a quick glance, make any edits, and then finalize that on week 4. If you are doing the honors book is meant to be started during week 3-ish. And then on week 4, on top of editing that paper for the main book, you are doing an approach paper or some sort of assignment it will give you on the honors book. So it's not 2 longer papers each module, but reading 2 novels plus a long paper plus these shorter assignments. So as you can see, there is a ton of writing included in this course. There is a ton of reading and a need for reading comprehension in this course. And for that reason, I think they're almost too strict on what they say their guidelines are for regular honors. And so I don't follow it exactly. I feel if you only did the main book for all 9 modules, that is definitely an honors level English course. That is 9 classic works read in a school year, discussed, researched, multiple writing assignments, including a longer paper done on all of those. I took honors level English in high school, and I did not go through as many works as she did and write as many papers as she did. I think if you wanted to do the honors book in addition to the main book each month, you totally could, and that would accelerate the class even more or raise that class up even more. And it's definitely different from like the BJU course that I'll show you with my son, in that she is learning about these works and digging into the comprehension of them, but she is doing it pretty much independently with very little need for a teacher to sit down and actually go through things with her. Obviously, if she got stuck on something, she could ask. But when she starts a module, the module will have a couple of pages for her to read. It will tell her about the focus text, and then it will provide a little bit of information as far as backgrounds on the literary period, introduction to it, something about the author, things to notice in the book. But mostly they provide what are called context resources. And during the first week and a half, she is supposed to go through and pick some of these context resources to check out. So these are meant to help give her a fuller view about the time period, about the author, the subject area of the book, and the book itself. So you can kind of go through and you could pick certain context resources you want your student to do, or you could simply say, hey, over this week you get to pick and choose which ones do you want to look at in order to complete your research on your book. So they go through that and check out those context resources, and then the assignment schedule is listed in here. It will give a little more detail on what it is she's supposed to be doing, things she's supposed to be noting. It'll ask her questions. It's not giving her an answer to those questions, but it's prompting questions on things she's supposed to think about. And then, again, details on the papers themselves. So that is how each module has been set up. We have not done every single honors book this year. If you've watched any of my update videos, some modules we have just done the main book. Some we have done the main book plus the honors book. And to give you just a list of some of the books she's done so far this year, she read Beowulf. We did not do the honors book with that one. Pierce the Plowman she read Pierce the Plowman. That was the honors book that went with Canterbury Tales. We did Sir Gawain, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and then she read Le Morte d'Arthur as the honors book. She read King Lear. I did not make her read Hamlet, which was the honors book. We had already studied Hamlet in a previous year. Paradise Lost, that was a beast of a book, and we did skip the honors book. Faust was the honors book that month. We skipped it. She read Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility, so she did both of those books. She had already read Pride and Prejudice once before. I had assigned it way back in middle school, so I had her reread it, so that made it a little faster for her to go through. Hence, I felt fine doing Sense and Sensibility. She read Great Expectations and Oliver Twist. Sorry, Mr. Dickens. I can't talk. She will be getting ready to go into Wuthering Heights, and then she will read The Tenant of Windfell Hall as the honors book. That is the next module she's got coming up. And then the last one for the year will be To the Lighthouse, and then the Space Trilogy by C.S. Lewis. That is an actual trilogy all in one volume. I'm probably only going to have her read one of the 3 books in that trilogy simply due to time. We have found that there have been modules where I simply needed to give her an extra week. We had a lot going on maybe that month. She had a lot of other assignments, and I just didn't want to make her feel like she had to rush through the novels or rush through the papers. So we would simply add a 5th week on, and that has, again, kind of pushed us out a little further, but I still feel like she's getting plenty out of this course. The one other thing I'd like to mention is Grading Writing Assignments and Guides for Writing Assignments. It recommends this Excellence in Literature Handbook for Writers book. And if you're going to do any of these courses, just go ahead and buy this. It's so helpful to have. First of all, it does give her a lot of guidance on writing, how to approach it, how to organize different types of works, how to cite different things. Very important in that regard. It also gives information on the different types of writing assignments that are being asked of her. What is an approach paper? What should it look like? What should it include? What is an author profile? What are summary titles? How should you format your big final paper for each one? So she has been using this for that purpose. It is also helpful because then I can use this to see what it is I'm supposed to be looking for when I grade her papers. And then the very last thing I do want to mention about this is that about halfway through the year, it does assign a research paper. This is optional, but it is something that she's meant to work on over the course of the entire semester. I did assign this because she will be dual enrolling next year for English, and I know longer papers are going to be assigned, and there's a good chance she's going to have research papers assigned. I would rather her write a long research paper for me and kind of work out the kinks on how to do that and how to write it and how to format it. A research paper regarding English and literature to me was always more difficult to do than the ones I did for my science courses, because you're having to analyze and deep dive and think about all of this and find different quotes and sources and be able to use that to kind of build around your main idea. Whereas science, you're just stating facts over again. So I always found that was harder for me, and I'd really like her to have the practice of writing something like that for me, even if, she struggles through it and there's a lot of things that we need to correct. It's great practice, and I'd rather her do that practice for me than for a college professor for the first time. So that is what my oldest is doing for her 11th grade English. It is the Excellence in Literature, British Literature, and the Wordly Wise level 11. Now on to what my 10th grader is using. You will notice that he has some different components in his English course than his sister does, and that's simply because of the curriculum that I happen to choose for each of them and the type of learner they are and their strengths in English and in writing. You'll notice that I did not have any grammar for my 11th grader. She had completed all of the Fix-It Grammar programs from IEW. She's really good with grammar. I rarely have to fix anything when I'm doing paper edits. My son is almost done with Fix-It Grammar. He is on level 6. This is the Little Mermaid. For those who are unfamiliar with Fix-It Grammar from IEW, there are 6 levels to it, designed to be done, 1 per year. So you could start it, let's say you started it in 7th grade. You could go 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. We actually started it way back earlier in middle school. And so level 6 was pretty much completed for both my kids during their 10th grade year. We just simply started it far earlier than I think what it even recommends, but it's worked out great for us. The way that it works is that at the start of a week, there is a page that talks about a particular grammar concept. For example, week 27 on this one talks about unclear pronouns, and then it has review of certain types of sentence openers using prepositions, clausal starters. It has just a few things for them to do on there to make sure that they understand that little concept that's being taught. So it's 2 pages. And then for each day, I hope you can see this. There we go. It will tell you what you're supposed to be looking for. Vocabulary words, things you're supposed to mark, things you're supposed to fix. And then it has a couple of sentences from the story. When we were on the earlier years, there would be just 1 sentence, maybe 2 to fix. But now that he's in level 6, there are several sentences. He'll go through and he will mark all of these different things on that. And then he will rewrite the sentence correctly, making any changes that need to be made. I've liked how they've tweaked this program recently. They have switched up which books are on which level. So he had actually already done The Little Mermaid a couple of years ago. It used to be used on a different level. And then when they did the revamp, they made Little Mermaid Book 6. They also used to have to rewrite the sentences in a separate notebook, and I like that it's on here now. It's actually easier for me because I can more quickly see, find that day's assignment and grade it, whereas before, if he was filling out 2 or 3 days and then I was getting to grading, I was having to figure out where each one stopped. So this has just made it a lot easier for me for grading, plus we don't need an extra notebook. I feel like this is great if you've started to teach basic grammar concepts. So if you've covered basic grammar concepts in elementary school and in middle school, and you were to start with Fix-It Grammar, there is review that is done. There are new concepts that are taught, but they are taught in little bite-sized pieces, and then it's repeated over and over and over again. It's not, hey, this week we're going to look at this particular grammar rule, and then you're never going to see it again. We're just going to assume you always know it. There's a good chance that it's going to be repeated for several weeks. It might be pulled back up in later weeks, and you're going to be kind of building that recognition skill. It's very much like the spiral learning, which was something we really liked with sex and math, that whole idea that you're continuously reviewing, you're adding a little more on at a time so a student's not overwhelmed with all of the things they have to find and mark on a given week. You might only be marking 1, 2, or 3 things the first couple of days or the first couple of weeks, and then it builds to 4 and then to 5 and so on and so forth. So I have liked that. I think the kids have liked the fact that this takes about 10 minutes to do each day, but they're getting that little bit of grammar review. So we have done that. I have always liked Fix-It Grammar. I've also liked that it ties in very nicely with IEW writing. So if you are using IEW's writing courses, a lot of the terminology will be the same from one to the other, and their approach to different things. I feel like that helps to, again, reinforce concepts back and forth between grammar and writing. Now, for the writing component of my son's English course, we are using an IEW theme-based writing. I could choose to do the writing assignments that are included in the literature book he has, but I don't feel like that's quite enough, and I'm not a big fan of the writing and grammar course that BJU offers, but I'm a huge fan of IEW and their approach to things. The IEW approach is not a fit for everybody. If you have a student who doesn't want a whole bunch of, guidelines to their writing or certain things they need to make sure that they include, it's probably not for your student. Mine enjoy that. They are what I would always call reluctant writers. If they had their choice, they would not write papers ever. It's not something that they are thrilled to see assigned to them. However, I have seen how this curriculum over the years has built up their writing skills. They don't have to love writing, but they can be good at it, and they can communicate well the thoughts and the key points that they need to get across. So this year he is doing, let me flip to the cover here, I have some pages marked. He is doing Bible-based writing lessons. This is a theme-based program. If you have not familiarized yourself with IEW, they offer a couple of different types of writing courses. They have the main course that they offer, which is called Structure and Style. That is a year-long course. It does include access to digital videos and lectures where Andrew Pudewa is teaching the different writing skills and really introducing how it is that IEW writing works. And then they will follow along in a student book and have writing assignments that they do throughout the year. They have it for different levels. So if you're starting IEW back in, I think, elementary school, there's a version of it for that. There's one for middle school and there's one for high school. We took the structure and style course in middle school. So both of my kids did 1 year of structure and style. They had a structure and style year 2 if you had a struggling writer. So my son actually did 2 years of structure and style, and my oldest did 1. And then they moved into theme-based writing. So that's what these are. These are the theme-based writing courses. This is the teacher guide. He has a student manual. So there's the teacher guide and the student manual on there. And what these theme-based ones do is they pull the things that you've learned in structure and style. They review them in here and take you through it again. And each time you go up a level, it gets more in depth. So it's adding in more different types of writing techniques. It's asking more of your student as a writer. But the key ideas are the same. This whole idea that we write keyword outlines, that we do fused outlines, that we are using different types of sentence starters, that we're pulling in different types of what they call dress-ups, things to make your writing better. And the way that the assignments are graded are similar from course to course. Some of the things that he has been hitting upon, types of writing assignments he's done, and I'm going to read it right off of the index here, so apologies if I'm looking down. He started off by reviewing note-taking, making an outline, writing from his notes, retelling a narrative story, summarizing references, writing from pictures, summarizing multiple references, inventive writing, formal essay models, formal critique and response to literature, classical arrangement for argumentative essays. And then in the back of these books, it does include things if you wanted to utilize these courses for vocabulary purposes, if you want to see examples of different types of writing. And then each week the courses are set up similarly. Now this is the teacher guide, so all of this is not included in the student book, just what's here is what's included. But basically it will tell him what his goals are for the week, and then it will give him daily assignments. So for example, week 9, Daniel in the Lion's Den was the reading assignment. He was supposed to read a couple of pages in the IEW student book talking about how we write from pictures and the process we're to follow for writing from pictures. We were to read these passages from the Bible. So that's one of the things I like about this is all of the reading is basically pulled from the Bible for the year. We're going through different biblical lessons. Creating a keyword outline, and then repeating for different pictures. And then on day 2, there were style practice pages within his IEW book. He was to start writing a particular paragraphs, and then day 3, finish writing your 3-paragraph story, turn it in for editing, and then day 4, make his edits. And then you'll see that there's pages that instruct the student on the different techniques that they're doing. Tells about the process. And now this is one that's filled out already, but you can see here for writing from pictures. Sorry, let's see if you'll focus. There we go. He'll have different pictures, and then he's meant to write a keyword outline. IEW teaches what a keyword outline is and what you're supposed to do, but this just gives you some examples of what a keyword outline might look like. And then style practice, he can practice different dress-ups. The because clause was what he was doing on that particular week, and then he would write some sentences using that to just make sure he was doing it appropriately. They also introduced what they call banned words, basically words that are overused in writing or very common words, and it encourages them to build their vocabulary by using alternative words that mean the same thing, simply to dress up your writing. And then when he turns in a writing assignment, there is a checklist like this that is included. This is what he follows when he's writing to make sure he's including everything he's supposed to have in the writing assignment, and then I use it to grade as well. For example, week 9, making sure you have things like your name and date, composition's double-spaced, you have a title, you have a clincher sentence that repeats keywords from the central fact, and then dress-ups. He was to have ly adverbs in each paragraph, a who-which clause, a strong verb, a because clause, and a quality adjective. And then I mark off points if he has missed things on capitalization, punctuation, if he's missed complete sentences, or if there's any spelling errors. And then it has the list of banned words. So that week he couldn't use say, said, go, went, good, bad. He had to find alternative words that meant the same thing. This makes it so easy so easy to grade these papers because I literally read through the paper and I just make check marks as I'm going through. Is he including everything? It's also great for them because when he's writing a paper, he can use this to make sure he's included things. Typically what will happen is if he's doing a rough draft and he hands it in, I'll do a quick scan and make sure everything's included, and I'll be like, hey, paragraph 2, you missed using an ly adverb, and he can go back in and find where it makes sense to add that in or adjust it if needed. Sometimes we'll get assignments where I have to do a little more extensive editing. Typically that's when we're getting into the longer ones. This does build you up to writing a 5-paragraph essay, so you're doing an introduction, a conclusion, and your body paragraphs, and those are usually the ones where I have to do a little more editing and kind of send him back and have him kind of rework it. That is just an area that's always been, you know, a little more of a struggle, and we've just had to continually review and kind of build that skill up. So that is how the IEW theme-based programs work. If I had to make a recommendation, if it doesn't matter what age your student is, but if you're going to switch over to IEW, go ahead and do structure and style. It's a little more expensive. Yes, it does have the videos. However, it's really key to understanding this program and how it works. And then there's so many different theme-based ones you can use. We have done there's a Narnia Year 1 and a Narnia Year 2. Those were big favorites. They were actually rereading some of the Chronicles of Narnia books and then writing about those. We have done U.S. history-based lessons, medieval lessons. Oh gosh, I can't even remember all the different ones we've done. But basically after we did that first year structure and style, we switched over to the theme-based ones. And I have really just given them the option and said, well, here's the different ones that are available for the middle school levels or the high school levels. Which one would you like to do? The only time I made the decision for them was when my daughter took, in her 10th grade year, she was doing American literature and U.S. history. So I was like, let's do the U.S.-based, like U.S. history-based writing lessons, because then we're kind of following the same thing with everything. So we did that one. But all in all, it's still a good writing program. It's really, really been helpful for my kids. They do have some specialty programs out there for college writing and essay focus and things like that. And we have kind of worked those in on different years as we kind of progress through high school and we get ready for that college level writing as well. Lastly, let me talk about the literature component of my son's English course. We are using Elements of Literature. This is from BJU. Now you have a student textbook and then you have a 2-part teacher guide. So this is actually only one of the 2 binders. You almost have to have the teacher guide to really get anything out of this course. That in and of itself definitely adds to your cost because you're buying, 2 of these. The reason why I say that is because there are no answers anywhere for anything in this unless you have the teacher guide. And the teacher guide comes with a CD. Yep, good old-fashioned CD. I don't know how much longer they can offer the CDs. They might have to start offering downloads or something online, because I had to actually buy a CD, like a separate CD thing to plug into my computer to read the CDs, because my Mac computers don't have CD drives anymore. So BJU is something to think about. But you have to, because all of the information on the discussion questions, the answers, the worksheets, everything are within the teacher guide. My son has used BJU for 1, 2, 3. This is year 5. Largely, we have stuck with it because I do feel like it's a good course. And there's similarities to how it's set up from year to year. You will do a reading assignment. There'll be discussion questions. There'll be think about it questions where you kind of deep dive into a particular literary concept. There are optional worksheets you can print out called teacher helpers, which are basically, it's just a worksheet. There are 5-question reading quizzes that go with each selection. It's just to make sure that they've read it, that they've understood it. They will have options for you to do vocabulary worksheets. There are what we call reading practice tests. They are like 10 questions long. It's basically like a reading comprehension quiz. And then at the end of each unit, there is a unit review, and then there is a test. It's set up the same unit after unit, year after year. What varies is what each unit covers, the types of literary concepts that are the focus and the works that are covered. And then, of course, the number of units that are included as well. Those are really the things that vary from year to year. Sometimes the literature focus varies as well. For example, I know BJU has a US or an American literature course. I believe that's recommended for their grade 11, and then they have a British literature course, and that is recommended for year 12. But before that, it's kind of a generalized mix of different things. It's just the literary concepts that are different. This year, the literary concepts he's covering, and I'll just read them off because I believe there were 8. Imaginative comparison, sound and syntax, allusion and symbol, irony, folk tales and epics, essays and short stories, poetry, and then drama. So 8 units, lots of different things being covered. Most of the time, he'll read a short story or an essay, a couple of poems. Usually there's 1 or 2 poems assigned at a time. There will be excerpts from different types of literature. So he might read a chapter or 2 from a longer work or an abridged version. Sometimes it's a drama. For example, the drama one on here, I believe it's Romeo and Juliet, and you read the play, but you read a little bit at a time. There's very little reading of any full works. I mean, the most last year, I think 1 unit covered a good portion of a longer book, but obviously not the whole book. So you're not doing any full-on novel studies. I feel like that is one weakness in this, in that you aren't doing full novel studies. I have always readjusted their schedule to try to have him go ahead and read anywhere from 1 to 3 additional full novels, and then I've purchased separate study guides for those novels. I just feel like there's a real benefit to reading a story from start to finish and getting some of those, what I would call like classic books, or books that, you know, I feel like everybody should read at some point, included into there. So I feel like that is a weakness in it. The other thing is that after doing this course for 5 years, I almost feel like we're kind of getting in a rut. It was beneficial that things were similar year to year in terms of how they were set up and how it was approached, but now I just feel like it's been too much of the same, and we need to take a fresh approach to English and literature. Just looking at things differently. He's bored with it, and I'm bored with it. The other thing that I feel is that there's such a heavy focus in the high school years on poetry in these books. There are so many poems. There's whole units that are nothing but poems. We did, I think it was unit 2 on this one. It was on sound and syntax. So many poems. And then there's a whole nother unit later on that's all about poetry. He can't stand poetry. I'm not a huge poetry fan. I'm not helpful in teaching poetry because I have to sit there and learn how to read and understand it right alongside him. Now, if you want to make sure poetry is included in your homeschool and you love poetry and your kids love poetry, great. This might be perfect for you. It is not perfect for us. And in retrospect, I probably should have just skipped over those units that had such a heavy poetry focus, or only done bits and pieces from them. Of course, that's something I could have chosen to do. But yeah, heavy poetry focus, not something that we're huge fans of. The other thing is how the unit tests work. The unit tests really expect you to remember an awful lot of details from the different reading assignments. And there's a lot of reading assignments in a unit. I don't think it's that hard to remember key themes from a unit. I think you should definitely be able to say what the main idea or the main struggle of a character, or what was the climax of a story and things like that. You should be able to remember that from stories in a unit, but very little details about things. Unit 2, I remember this. It wanted him to remember specific things that were mentioned, like 4 or 5 of them that were used as, like metaphors or something like that in one poem. So you basically had to have that poem memorized to be able to answer that question. And so sometimes I would say, let's just do it as an open book test, because some of those questions are so specific. It's just weird stuff to remember. And I didn't feel like the unit tests were really telling me if he understood all of the main ideas of that unit and the real focus of what those literary concepts were and what they were trying to, convey, what he was supposed to get from it as far as learning the literary concepts. And so it's just the fact that it's been so repetitive, that there's still so much poetry focus and no longer novels, that we probably won't use BJU for literature next year. We will probably change our approach to literature for him to something that is more focused on reading entire works and really deep diving into different things that are demonstrated in that work. But it is still a strong course. I'm not going to say that it's a bad course. It's just not the right fit for us anymore. So that's just something to consider. Strong course, does teach, good reading comprehension and everything. It's no longer a good fit for us. I will say that the teacher guides are very well done. I will give them great kudos for that, because as you are reading something, you'll see that pages are there's highlights with additional information down here for you. There is a ton of information you can share with your student. This is not a course that is meant to be done independently. This really does require you to spend some time discussing these works with your student, going through the questions with them, making sure that they have understanding. Even through the high school years, it's really set up that way, where it is meant to be a little more teacher intensive. Possibly this would be something that would work well maybe in like a co-op setting, where you have several students discussing works together and sharing ideas and answering the questions. But if you are just doing it with one of your students, you will probably want to plan time for each day to actually sit and go through the questions and answers on each literary work with your student. That wraps up this curriculum review video for our English and literature courses. If you have not already seen the one I posted on our history and social studies courses, I will link that one down below. Be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to my channel. That way you can get notified as I post these additional videos. All throughout the month of April, I will be doing ones that focus on different subject areas. We still have our math courses coming up, our science courses, and our electives. And so you can find out what we really thought of the things that we've used in the past year before I reveal what we're using in the 2024-2025 school year. And those videos with those new curriculum choices will come out in May. Thanks so much for joining me today, everybody. Happy homeschooling, and I'll see you in the next video.